In 1971, an American Airlines plane had just taken off for a few minutes when a passenger sitting in the very last seat called the air hostess to him, and with a smile handed her a letter. In that letter were just a few words that created a stir. Throughout America, who was that passenger, and why hasn't the FBI been able to find him alive or dead to this day? Forget finding him. Even America's most powerful intelligence agency hasn't been able to extract the slightest information about that passenger in the last 50 years. This interesting case began on November 24th, 1971, at Portland Airport, when a man who looked like a businessman booked a ticket from Portland to Seattle and directly started boarding the plane back then in America. There was no kind of security on domestic flights. Neither passenger's luggage was checked, nor their identity verified. This was a Northwest Orient Airlines aircraft, a Boeing 727, which was supposed to reach Seattle from Portland in just 45 minutes. Wearing sunglasses and carrying a briefcase, this passenger boarded the plane and went to sit in the seat of his choice, which was the very last one in the plane. He ordered himself a drink, water, and also lit a cigarette. Everything was going normal so far, because smoking on flights was also allowed in the 70s. Exactly at 02:58 p.m., the flight took off right after takeoff. He turned around and, smiling, handed an envelope to the air hostess sitting next to him. And then the hostess, whose name was Florence Schaffner, when she read that letter, it was as if the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. It said, "Miss, I have a bomb and would like you to sit by me. I have a bomb and I want you to come and sit next to me." When Florence Schaffner came and sat next to him, he opened his briefcase, in which there were dynamite sticks and a detonator as well. In short, the plane had been hijacked, and the hijacker had 3 demands. He wanted before 5 o'clock $200,000 cash, 2 pairs of parachutes, and a refueling truck ready at the airport. At the end of his demands, he also indirectly told Florence Schaffner that if anything went wrong, he would blow up the bomb. Other than the hijacker, there were 35 passengers on the plane who had absolutely no idea about what was happening in the back of the plane. The air hostess took the demands to the cockpit and told the captain the entire situation. Another air hostess named Tina Mucklow now sat next to the hijacker with an intercom to relay messages between the pilot and the hijacker. Remember, this was the first plane hijacking in American history, done for ransom. This is why local. Authorities and the FBI decided that all of the hijacker's demands should be met. Obviously, the authorities also knew that he wouldn't be able to get far. The flight, which was supposed to land in Seattle in just 45 minutes, now kept circling around the airport for the next 1.5 hours, and the 35 passengers who were completely unaware of this entire incident were told that due to technical difficulties, the plane was having trouble landing. During this time, $20 bills numbering $10,000 were collected from Seattle National Bank. Their serial numbers were noted down, and from a nearby skydiving club, 2 pairs of parachutes were also arranged. At 5:45 p.m., the plane landed, and as promised, the hijacker was handed a bag full of cash and 2 pairs of parachutes along with refueling of the plane. After his demands were met, the hijacker allowed the 35 passengers and 2 flight crew members to leave the plane while telling the pilots, and 2 flight crew members to remain on board by this time. It was night, and the plane took off once again. The hijacker, through Tina Mucklow sitting beside him, gave specific instructions to the pilot. He wanted the landing gear and flaps kept open, altitude at 10,000 feet, speed at 320 km/h, and the plane flown straight to Mexico City. The pilot accepted all other demands, but it wasn't possible to fly straight to Mexico City due to fuel limitations, so the pilot gave the hijacker a couple of options for refueling. He agreed on Reno. Meanwhile, local and federal authorities were also doing their work. Fighter jets were dispatched behind the plane, but they couldn't maintain such a slow speed, so they started circling around the aircraft as the plane was flying towards Reno in the dark. Night, the hijacker told Tina Mucklow, sitting beside him, to go to the cockpit where the 2 pilots and a flight attendant were present. When Tina turned to close the cockpit door, she saw for the last time only that the hijacker was tying something around his waist after that, He opened the aircraft stairs and jumped from there. What happened afterward has been discussed for the last 50 years. 3 hours later, when the plane landed in Reno, the entire interior was thoroughly checked, but neither the hijacker nor any bomb could be found. Not only was there no body, but after this incident, there was no trace of the hijacker alive or dead. Who he was and where he disappeared, deceiving all of America, remains a mystery. This case of cash is the FBI case that has never been closed. No one saw the hijacker jump from the plane, but since the staircase was left open, it was clear that he had jumped somewhere between Seattle and Reno. The FBI started searching the plane for evidence, but unfortunately, all they found were his tie, cigarette butts, and one of the 2 parachutes that he left behind for weeks. There wasn't even a photo of him. After interviewing the passengers, a sketch of the hijacker was made based on their description. Before he could be located between Seattle and Reno, the FBI needed to know exactly where he had jumped from the Sierra plane. This wasn't too difficult, because the plane was on autopilot, meaning the flight path was already recorded. The speed and altitude of the plane were already known, and with the help of the flight recorder, it was found that the aircraft's staircase was opened at 8:10 p.m. Based on all this information, the hijacker's drop location was estimated, and a search area was defined. This 45 square kilometer area was surrounded by dense forests and mountains. Serial teams and land search teams combed every inch of this entire area, but no sign of the hijacker, or the briefcase, or the money was found. Also, the cold in this entire area was so severe that everyone believed the hijacker must have died. But what happened afterward was beyond the FBI's imagination. For the first time in American history, the Bureau asked for the public's help on this. Case the hijacker's sketch and the serial numbers of the $200 were published in newspapers, and a reward was offered for any information about him. They believed that if Cooper was alive, he would spend the money somewhere. But astonishingly, not a single note with those serial numbers ever surfaced anywhere. But the case wasn't over yet. Around 9 years later, in 1980, an incident occurred. In Washington, on the bank of the Columbia River, there is a beach called Tina Bar, where a child was playing with his parents when he found 3 bundles of bills on the riverbank. These bundles were part of the ransom, money totaling $5,800. The parents took the money to the FBI. Fortunately, the serial numbers matched those of the bills the hijacker had taken. This was the first progress in the hijacking case after 9 years. But instead of solving it, this incident only made the case more complicated because the money was found about 27 kilometers away from the drop location. Initially, it was thought that after the drop, the money fell into the Lewis River and floated to the Columbia River. But later it was noticed that the Columbia River flows in the opposite direction, meaning the money could not possibly have floated from the Lewis River to Tina Bar for the FBI. The case was getting even more tangled instead of clearer. Not only that, but at Tina Bar Beach, where the money was recovered, some excavation work had been done in 1974, 3 years after the hijacking. The money was found buried in the sand added to Tina Bar Beach during that excavation. This information indicated that either the hijacker or an accomplice had intentionally returned to Tina Bar Beach 3 years later and buried the money there to mislead the investigation. The FBI also investigated people resembling him, but no significant clue could be found. Many theories also claim that Cooper was likely a trained military commander because the parachute he took was a military parachute, and operating it was far more difficult than the civilian parachute he left on the plane. Other than the $5,800 cash found in 1980, the remaining $9,720 notes were never recovered. As evidence, the FBI has only his sketch and the ticket on which he wrote his name himself, and the tie on which the clip was attached to the left side, indicating that he was left-handed. This case has kept the FBI puzzled with questions for the past 50 years. Even today, the Bureau's website contains all the details of this case, and the case file remains open. We hope you'll like and share this video wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.